Most people believe U.S. Marines fought the Pacific War with the M1 Garand. They are wrong. Marines hit the beaches of Guadalcanal still carrying a rifle from World War I, a submachine gun so unreliable they threw it away mid-campaign, and a British anti-tank rifle they only had because nothing better was available yet. 27 weapons total. Here is every single one. We start with the M1903 Springfield. Bolt action, 30-06, 5 rounds and an internal magazine. A rifle designed in 1903 that Marines were still carrying into combat in 1942. The M1 Garand was supposed to replace it. Supply did not cooperate, so Marines landed on Guadalcanal with a weapon their fathers could have carried, worked the bolt between each shot, and made it work anyway. It stayed in service throughout the war as a sniper rifle. In that role, it was never obsolete. Next we have the M1 Garand, semi-automatic 30-06, 8 rounds in a steel and block clip. Every pull of the trigger chambered the next round automatically. General George Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. When that 8th round fired, the empty clip ejected automatically and the bolt locked open, ready to reload instantly. Most Marines let the clip run dry before swapping. Removing a partially loaded clip meant losing whatever rounds remained. In the Pacific, no Marine wasted ammunition on principle. Moving on to the M1 Carbine, 30 caliber carbine, 15-round detachable box magazine, 5.5 pounds. Issued to officers, NCOs, and support troops who needed something lighter than a full battle rifle. The logic was sound, the cartridge was not. Marines in the Pacific reported consistently that the 30 caliber carbine round did not reliably stop Japanese soldiers in close jungle fighting. It was a fine weapon for the war it was not designed for. We have the M1941 Johnson rifle, semi-automatic 30-06, 10-round rotary magazine that could be topped off through the open action with standard 5-round stripper clips, designed by Marine Reserve Officer Melvin Johnson. It was adopted by the Marine Raiders and select units when M1 Garand supply fell short. Accurate, reliable, and well regarded by the men who carried it. It was phased out the moment Garand production caught up. The Corps did not hold sentimentality as a procurement criterion. Next we have the M1897 Winchester trench gun, 12-gauge, pump action, 6-round tubular magazine, perforated heat shield, bayonet lug. It was already a veteran of World War I when Marines took it into the Pacific. In the dense jungle fighting of Guadalcanal, where the enemy appeared at distances measured in feet rather than yards, a 12-gauge shotgun pattern did not require precision aim, it required pointing. The Japanese government formally protested its use as a violation of the laws of war. The United States kept using it. This is that weapon. Let us continue with the Winchester Model 1912 trench gun, also 12-gauge, also pump action, also fitted with heat shield and bayonet lug. A more modern action than the Model 1897, smoother cycling, cleaner receiver. Marines used both the 1897 and the 1912 throughout the Pacific. The enemy's opinion of being on the wrong end of a 12-gauge shotgun did not vary based on which model was involved. Moving on to the M1928A1 Thompson, 45 ACP, 20 and 30 round box magazines in Marine service, approximately 700 rounds per minute. The 50-round drum existed, Marines rarely carried it in the Pacific. It was heavy, prone to feed issues in humid conditions, and slower to reload under pressure than a box magazine. The Thompson was expensive to produce, heavy to carry, and effective at every distance jungle fighting produced. It carried a reputation it had largely earned.
We have the Thompson M1A1, the wartime production version. Same 45 ACP, same magazines, same rate of fire. The cuts compensator was removed, the adjustable rear sight was removed. Production speed increased. It was less refined and identically lethal. Marines in the Pacific did not file complaints about the missing compensator. Next we have the Rising M50, 45 ACP, 20-round magazine, semi and fully automatic. Adopted by the Marines in 1941, when Thompson supply could not meet demand. In Guadalcanal, in the heat and the mud and the humidity of the island, it jammed, repeatedly, consistently. Marines on the front line reported it failed them at the moments it could least afford to. They threw them into rivers, into the jungle. Marines who had just landed on a contested island discarded their primary weapons mid-campaign rather than trust them in combat. It is a remarkable achievement to produce a firearm so poorly regarded that armed men preferred to be without it. Moving on to the Rising M55, the folding stock variant of the M50, intended for paratroopers and vehicle crews. Same 45 ACP, same 20-round magazine, same fundamental design. The folding stock made it more compact. It did not make it more reliable. The M55 carried the same reputation as its sibling and deserved every word of it. We have the M1918A2, the Browning automatic rifle, 30-06, 20-round magazine, fully automatic with 2 selectable rates, approximately 300 rounds per minute slow, approximately 600 fast. Every Marine rifle squad in the Pacific was built around it. The bar gunner set the base of fire. Everyone else supported him. At approximately 19 pounds with a loaded magazine and bipod, it was not a light weapon. Marines carried it anyway. The squad could not function without it. Next we have the M1941 Johnson light machine gun, 30-06, 20-round detachable magazine, approximately 13 pounds, lighter than the bar by 6 pounds and field strippable without tools. The Marine Raiders adopted it specifically because their missions required moving fast with everything they carried. It never replaced the bar in standard units. Among the Raiders, it filled a role the bar was simply too heavy to fill comfortably. Let us continue with the M1917A1 Browning, water-cooled heavy machine gun, 30-06, belt-fed, 450 rounds per minute. The water jacket surrounding the barrel allowed sustained fire far beyond what any air-cooled design could manage. Marines used it in fixed defensive positions and prepared fire support roles. The complete system, gun, water, tripod, and ammunition, weighed well over 100 pounds. You set it up, you kept it there. That was the arrangement. Moving on to the M1919A4, Browning, air-cooled, 30-06, belt-fed, 400 to 500 rounds per minute. The gun alone weighed approximately 31 pounds, significantly more portable than the M1917A1, with reduced sustained fire endurance in exchange for the ability to move it. Marines used it at the squad and platoon level, where mobility mattered more than the ability to fire indefinitely without stopping. We have the M2 Browning, 50 caliber BMG, 450 to 600 rounds per minute, belt-fed, mounted on vehicles, landing craft, aircraft, and fortified positions across the entire Pacific theater. The gun alone weighed 84 pounds. It entered United States service in 1933. It remains in service today. At some point, a weapon stops being a piece of equipment and becomes a permanent feature of the American military landscape. The M2 reached that point decades ago. Next, we have the M1911A1, 45 ACP, 7 rounds in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, single-action semi-automatic, the standard sidearm of the United States Marine Corps. John Browning designed the original M1911 after the Moro Rebellion in the Philippines, after the Army concluded that 38 caliber revolvers were not reliably stopping determined enemies at close range. The M1911A1 was not a primary weapon. It was the weapon Marines reached for when the primary weapon was empty, broken, or out of reach. In the Pacific, that moment came for a great many Marines, and the M1911A1 was there for it. Moving on to the Smith & Wesson Victory model. Double-action revolver, 38 special, 6-round cylinder. Issued to officers, aviators, and support personnel when M1911A1 supply could not fully meet demand. The Victory designation was a wartime production simplification. The finish was rough. The internals were functional rather than refined. The name was somewhat optimistic given the circumstances. It worked. In 1942, that was the complete requirement. We have the K-bar fighting knife, adopted by the United States Marine Corps in 1942. 7-inch carbon steel clip-point blade, stocked leather washer handle, brown leather sheath. Marines used it for combat, for clearing vegetation, for opening rations, and for everything in between. The origin of the name K-bar is disputed and has been for decades. The knife's effectiveness is not. Next, we have the Collins No. 18 Bowie-style fighting knife, the gung-ho knife, carried by Carlson's Marine Raiders. Made by Collins & Company with a heavy clip-point blade approximately 9 inches long. Lieutenant Colonel Evans Carlson adopted the term gung-ho from the Chinese phrase for working together.
made it the motto of his raiders, and his men carried this knife as both tool and identity. It was larger and heavier than the K-bar, and entirely consistent with the raider philosophy of doing nothing in half measures. Let us continue with the Marine Raider Stiletto, double-edged blade approximately 6.5 inches long, designed specifically for the raiders, influenced by British commando knife doctrine. It could not cut rope effectively, it could not open a field ration, it had no secondary utility of any kind. It was designed for exactly one application. It was issued to men whose operational role occasionally required exactly that application. The Marine Stiletto is honest about what it is, which is more than can be said for most things. Moving on to the M2 parachutist's knife, issued to the Marine paratroopers, the Paramarines. Single-edged blade with a marlin spike for cutting parachute suspension lines in an emergency. The Paramarines were disbanded in February 1944. Large-scale parachute operations had proven impractical in the Pacific Theater, and the unit was dissolved before it was ever used for its primary purpose. The knife outlasted the unit that carried it. We have the Knuckle Duster fighting knife, a brass knuckle-integrated blade carried by select Marine Raider personnel. It combined a fighting knife with a full brass knuckle handguard, allowing use as both a cutting and a striking weapon. It appeared primarily in raider units where close-quarters combat was doctrine rather than contingency. Whether its value was primarily practical or psychological is a fair question, and one that does not have a clean answer. Next, we have the M2 flamethrower, approximately 4 gallons of napalm-thickened fuel, effective range of 20 to 40 yards, approximately 8 to 9 seconds of continuous fire per full load. Japanese bunkers built into coral rock, cave systems sealed against grenades and rifle fire, fortified positions that nothing else could clear, the flamethrower cleared them. Marines used it on every major island from Guadalcanal to Okinawa. The operator carried approximately 65 to 70 pounds of fuel and compressed nitrogen on his back. He was the primary target for every Japanese soldier who could see him the moment he was identified on the battlefield. Marines who carried flamethrowers knew what they were walking into. They carried them anyway. That is the only thing that needs to be said about the men who operated this weapon. Moving on to the M1 bazooka, 2.36-inch rocket launcher, shaped charge warhead, effective range on a stationary target of approximately 137 yards, a 2-man crew, 1 to fire, 1 to load. The Japanese fielded relatively few tanks in the Pacific. The bazooka found its primary use against bunkers and hardened emplacements rather than armor, exactly the kind of fixed defensive positions that defined every island campaign from 1942 onward. It was called an anti-tank weapon. In the Pacific, it earned a different reputation entirely. We have the Boys anti-tank rifle, British design, bolt action, chambered in .55 Boys caliber, 5-round detachable box magazine. Marines carried it in the early Pacific campaign, particularly at Guadalcanal, before the bazooka was widely available at the frontline level. Against Japanese light armor and prepared positions at close range, it was functional. Against anything heavier, it was an optimistic choice. Those who fired it described the recoil as significant. In the language of weapons evaluators, significant means memorable in a way that discourages repetition. Next, we have the 37mm M3A1 anti-tank gun, a light-towed gun capable of firing armor-piercing, high-explosive, and canister rounds. Its anti-tank role against Japanese armor was real but secondary. When Japanese infantry launched massed banzai charges in the dark, waves of men crossing open ground, Marines loaded canister rounds. A canister round from a 37mm gun is effectively the largest shotgun shell ever produced. At Guadalcanal and across subsequent island campaigns, the M3A1 broke infantry charges that nothing else was positioned to stop. It was called an anti-tank gun. In the Pacific, it earned a different reputation entirely. Finally, we have the Mark II fragmentation grenade. Cast iron segmented body, approximately 1.5 pounds, 4 to 5 second delay fuse. The segmented exterior earned it the nickname Pineapple. Every Marine carried them. Every engagement of the Pacific War produced a moment that required them: jungle fighting, cave clearing, bunker assault, trench fighting, from Guadalcanal in 1942 to Okinawa in 1945. Simple, reliable, present at every island, every beach, every cave, every yard of ground the Marines ever took in the Pacific. The last weapon on this list, and in many ways, the one that never left a Marine's hand for the entire war. 27 weapons, every one of them carried by United States Marines across the islands of the Pacific during World War II. If you want to go deeper on any single weapon, the channel has you covered. Leave the one you want next in the comments.